Types of circulation. There are three different types of circulation in our body: systemic circulation, coronary circulation, pulmonary circulation. Apart from these three, there is a short circulation in body is the portal circulation. Here is the difference between systemic and pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary circulation actually starts from the heart to the lung, then lung to the heart. But the systemic circulation is from heart to different parts of the body, and again from different parts of the body to the heart. It's a basic concept of pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. Here we can see the differences between the systemic and pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary circulation carries the deoxygenated blood from right ventricle to the heart to the lung through pulmonary artery, while systemic circulation carries the oxygenated blood from left ventricle to different parts of the body. Pulmonary circulation carries oxygenated blood from lungs to the left atrium of the heart through the pulmonary vein, while systemic circulation carries deoxygenated blood from different parts of the body to the right atrium through superior inferior vena cava. Pulmonary circulation composed of pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein, while systemic circulation composed of superior inferior vena cava and other small vessels. Pulmonary circulation carries the blood to the lung, while systemic circulation carries the blood throughout the body. Pulmonary circulation helps to release carbon dioxide from blood while dissolving oxygen in the blood. While on the other hand, the systemic circulation helps to provide nutrients and oxygen to the metabolizing cells in the body. Now, the coronary circulation is nothing but the circulation through the coronary arteries. We know there are two coronary arteries, right and left. The coronary arteries are arising from the branch from the aorta. These are functional end arteries, but anatomically not. They have biggest vasa vasorum. Vasa vasorum is the blood vessel which is connecting the blood vessel. So the tunica adventitia of the coronary artery consists of another blood vessel supplying its muscles, and these are called vasa vasorum. And regarding the coronary arteries, the vasa vasorum is biggest in size. Coronary arteries are short in their course because it starts from the anterior aspect till the posterior crus. So it is short in course but rapid and phasic. Regulation is mainly by metabolites. So control of coronary circulation is not by the nerves. Neuronal control is less, but metabolic control is more. Blood flows mainly during cardiac diastole. Systole is a contraction, diastole is a relaxation. So the flow of blood mainly occurs during cardiac diastole. Now, we can see the major arteries of the limbs: head and neck, thorax, abdomen and pelvis. So that means from the heart, we already have studied about the structure of the heart. So from the heart, from the left ventricle of the heart, how does the aorta pumps the blood into different parts of the body? How does it happen? How does the blood from the heart reaches the head, neck, brain, upper limb, lower limb, thorax, abdomen, pelvis, perineum, to each and every minute parts of the body? How does it reach? And that is what we studied under this topic, the circulation throughout the body. Finally, we have got one aorta arising from left ventricle. And this aorta, while emerging from the left ventricle, it is called ascending aorta. Then it arches to form arch of aorta. Then it goes down as descending aorta. While the ascending aorta comes up from the left ventricle, it gives suddenly two branches to either side of the heart, the right and left coronary arteries. So the first distribution of blood from the aorta is to the heart itself. Then comes the arch of aorta, then it forms arch of aorta. From the arch, 3 branches forms. In this picture you can see the ascending aorta, arch of the aorta and descending aorta. Ascending aorta gives 2 branches, these are the 2 coronary arteries. Arch of the aorta directly gives 3 branches. On the right side, right brachiocephalic trunk. On the left side, left common carotid, left subclavian. The brachiocephalic trunk suddenly divides into right subclavian, right common carotid. So on either side, now we have got a pair of a common carotid artery as well as a subclavian artery on either side. But the difference is on the right side, both subclavian as well as the common carotid, the right common carotid are branches arising from the brachiocephalic trunk. But on the left side, these 2 arteries are arising directly from the arch of aorta. That is the difference. So an additional one brachiocephalic trunk has been formed directly from arch of aorta, which is giving right subclavian as well as right common carotid artery. So after dividing this, we got subclavian on either side, common carotid on either side. Now the subclavian curves and it goes to the upper limb, while common carotid goes up to the head and neck. Now what happens to the common carotid artery is, in this picture you can see the heart with arch of aorta and 3 direct branches rising from it. This is brachiocephalic trunk that suddenly divides into subclavian as well as common carotid. This is left common carotid, this is left subclavian. The subclavian artery on either side goes to the upper limb, while the common carotid goes up to the head and neck and divides into external carotid and internal carotid. As the name implies, the external carotid artery supplies all the structures which is present outside the head and the neck, while internal carotid artery goes inside the cranial cavity, and structures present inside the cranial cavity are the brain and associated parts. So this internal carotid artery get inside the cranial cavity and supplies the structures within it. So these 2 arteries, these 2 branches rising from the common carotid artery supplies the structures as the name indicates. External carotid artery supplies the external structures, internal carotid artery obviously supplies the internal structures. Now we can move to the subclavian artery. Subclavian artery goes to the upper limb. On its way, it is passing through the axilla or armpit. While passing through the axilla, the subclavian artery changes its name into axillary artery. So the thing we have to mention here, we have to remember here is subclavian artery directly continues as axillary artery in the axilla. Then it enters the arm. Arm means the junction, or arm is the part between shoulder and elbow. So it reaches the arm. In the arm, the axillary artery changes its name into brachial artery. So here also brachial artery is a direct continuation of the axillary artery. In each site, its name is different. Subclavian artery forms the axillary artery later forms the brachial artery. And this brachial artery, the brachial artery, we are taking the blood pressure from the brachial artery while using the cuff of the BP apparatus. Brachial artery passes down through the arm, reaches the cubital fossa. What is cubital fossa? Cubital fossa is a muscular space which is present at the elbow in front. On the other hand, popliteal fossa is the muscular space which is getting behind the knee joint while flexing. So cubital fossa is anterior, popliteal fossa is posterior. These are nothing but the muscular spaces present at the elbow as well as knee joint respectively. Cubital and popliteal fossa. So in the hand we can see the cubital fossa. In the leg, that area is called the popliteal fossa. Here, when the brachial artery reaches the cubital fossa, it suddenly divides into an ulnar artery and a radial artery. Radial artery passes along the radius side, ulnar artery passes along the ulnar side. Finally, it enters into the palm, where both radius and ulnar artery undergoes anastomosis. After anastomosing, it forms anastomosis means after anastomosis it forms an arch-like artery, from which numerous digital branches arises that goes to the fingers. So now, blood from the heart reaches the fingers. So it supplies the arm, forearm, hand. This is how the blood reaches throughout the upper limb. And through common carotid artery, the blood reaches the head and brain. Now we can move to the descending thoracic aorta and descending abdominal aorta. Descending thoracic aorta is the continuation of the arch of aorta. This descending thoracic aorta is a part of the aorta that is passing through the thoracic cavity. While the thoracic cavity, which is passing through the thoracic cavity, it gives many branches that supplies the structures within the thoracic cage. And these branches are intercostal arteries, subcostal arteries, left bronchial artery, esophageal artery, pericardial artery, mediastinal artery, superior phrenic artery. Intercostal artery supplies the intercostal spaces. Subcostal arteries. Subcostal is the last intercostal artery. There are several intercostal spaces are there. Intercostal space is the space between the ribs. We have 12 pairs of ribs. So between the ribs there are intercostal spaces. And these spaces are supplied by intercostal artery which is arising from the thoracic aorta. Then last intercostal artery is called the subcostal artery. Then left bronchial artery. We know thoracic cage consists of lung, and this lung is getting supplied by the bronchial artery. Left bronchial artery is arising from thoracic aorta. Then another structure passing through the thorax is the esophagus. So this thoracic aorta gives off an esophageal branch. Another structure present within the chest region is the pericardium. So it gives a pericardial branch. Then a mediastinal branch to the mediastinum, and the superior phrenic, that is the last artery, the superior phrenic artery. Superior phrenic artery, phrenic is the term which is pertaining to the diaphragm. So superior phrenic artery is supplying the superior surface of the diaphragm. After the diaphragm, we have to move to the abdomen. So up to the diaphragm, the thoracic artery is supplying. So these are the different structures which is supplied by thoracic artery by giving its name: intercostal, subcostal, left bronchial, esophageal, pericardial, mediastinal and superior phrenic. Now, this thoracic aorta pierces the diaphragm, and this is entering into the abdomen. So the piercing of the diaphragm takes place at the 12th thoracic vertebrae, and after entering into the diaphragm, the aorta is called abdominal aorta. Abdominal aorta passes through the abdomen, and it has to supply all the structures present within the abdominal cavity. We know abdominal cavity consists of digestive organs, the digestive tract organs, as well as the posterior abdominal wall consists of excretory organs like kidney. So these excretory organs are also supplied by the abdominal aorta. Then it also consists of an endocrine organ, the suprarenal. So that is also has to be supplied by abdominal aorta. Therefore, because since it's having different components, different organs, the abdominal aorta is designed to set its supply by making two sets of arteries. Two sets of arteries in the sense, The anterior surface of the artery gives off three branches, three unpaired branches, single branches. That supplies the digestive organs. Those arteries which is arising from either side of the aorta supplies the remaining organs inside the abdominal cavity. That means the kidney, suprarenal gland, gonads, all this is supplied by the remaining branches which is arising from either side of the aorta. That means these arteries are paired, while the arteries which is supplying the digestive organs are unpaired. That is only 3 in number, and they are celiac trunk, superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery. Celiac trunk is supplying the structures derived from foregut. Foregut structures are starts from the mouth to the middle of the second part of duodenum. All these structures. Abdominal aorta has to supply the structures derived from the foregut present below the diaphragm. So it has to supply the stomach, then duodenum, the first part, middle of the second part, up to that level. Then remaining part of the second part, third part of duodenum, fourth part of the duodenum, the whole jejunum, the whole ileum, cecum with appendix, ascending colon, and almost 3/4 of the transverse colon is derived from the midgut. So which is supplied by the superior mesenteric artery, the branch of superior mesenteric artery. So for example, if you say the supply of the jejunum and ileum. Jejunum and ileum are supplied by jejunal and ileal arteries. But these are branches from the superior mesenteric artery because superior mesenteric artery is the artery of the midgut. Then the remaining is the hindgut. That is, up to the 3/4 of the transverse column was midgut. Then remaining 1/4 of the transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, anal canal. Up to that level is a derivation from the hindgut, and this hindgut is supplied by the inferior mesenteric artery. So it is very clear that superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery and celiac trunk are supplying the different parts of the gut. That is foregut, midgut, hindgut. That's why it is called artery of the foregut, artery of the midgut and artery of the hindgut. In this picture, we can see the abdominal aorta, and in the middle, unpaired arteries are visible. One is celiac trunk, other is superior mesenteric artery, other is inferior mesenteric artery. And you listen to other branches arising from this is they are paired, and these paired branches are not supplying the digestive organs, but it supplies other organs like gonads, kidney, ureter, then suprarenal gland, etc. So the remaining other branches includes inferior phrenic artery, the first being inferior phrenic artery because that is given from the abdominal aorta just after it enters into the abdominal cavity, just below the diaphragm. So superior phrenic artery was there from the superior, thoracic aorta, and that was supplying the superior aspect of the diaphragm, while inferior phrenic artery is given off from the abdominal aorta. That is the first branch arising from the abdominal aorta, which is supplying the inferior surface of the diaphragm. Then middle suprarenal artery is supplying the suprarenal gland. Gonadal artery supplies gonads. Renal artery supplies the kidney. Then median sacral artery. Median sacral artery supplies, it is only one in number, which is supplying the sacral region. Then lumbar artery supplying the wall of the abdominal wall, abdominal cavity, wall of the abdominal cavity supplied by the lumbar artery. So these are the paired branches which is supplying the structures other than the digestive organs. Now, here this picture is showing just the supply into the upper limb. You can see the subclavian up to the subclavian is present up to the outer border of the first rib, then from there to the teres major is the axillary artery, then this is the brachial artery, then you can see the radial ulnar artery which is going inside the palm and forming the palmar arch. From there digital branches rises that goes to the digit of fingers. Now we have got how does the blood reaches the head, neck, brain, upper limb, thorax, abdomen, and now the remaining is pelvis, perineum and lower limb. Pelvis, perineum and lower limb has to get supply from the remaining part of aorta. Here we have reached till lower limit of the abdominal aorta. At the level of fourth lumbar vertebrae, that this abdominal aorta divides into two common iliac artery. One goes to the right side, other goes to the left side. The common iliac artery again divides into an external iliac artery and internal iliac artery. You can see here the common iliac artery and the external internal iliac artery. This is external, this is internal iliac artery which is rising from the common iliac. As the name implies, external iliac artery goes outside the body cavity and it supplies the lower limb. Internal iliac artery comes inside the body cavity and it supplies the structures present within the pelvis and the perineum. So internal iliac artery goes inside again and it supplies the pelvic cavity structures and perineal structures. Now what happens to the external iliac artery? In this picture you can see the lower part of the aorta, the common iliac artery and its subdivisions like internal iliac and external iliac. Internal iliac we already have seen that it is going inside and supplies the pelvis perineum, while external iliac goes into the lower limb. This external iliac artery first enters the thigh region and there it is called the femoral artery. In the thigh region it is called the femoral artery. This femoral artery reaches the knee where this artery goes behind the knee in the popliteal fossa. So this femoral artery goes down towards the knee and passes behind the knee into the popliteal fossa. In the popliteal fossa, this changes its name into popliteal artery. So femoral artery continues as popliteal artery in the popliteal fossa. Now the artery is behind the knee joint. There it divides into two branches, anterior tibial artery and posterior tibial artery. So anterior posterior tibial arteries are branches arising from the popliteal arteries. Both these two divisions takes place behind the lower limb. Now the anterior tibial and posterior tibial arteries has to go to the corresponding compartments of the leg. Leg means the area between knee and ankle. We have reached only up to the knee now. Now we have to move to the leg region. Leg has an anterior aspect and a posterior aspect. Anterior tibial artery has to move in front. So now the two branches which is situated behind, out of which the anterior tibial goes anteriorly and it passes through the anterior aspect of the leg. So this is anterior tibial that goes in front and reaches the ankle region. After reaching the ankle region, this is an anterior tibial artery, it reaches the ankle region. After reaching here, it enters into the dorsum of the foot. Foot has two aspects, one upper surface and an under surface. Upper surface is the dorsum of the foot where you can see the thin skin. But lower surface or under surface is the plantar surface that forms the sole of the foot. So it has two surfaces, a dorsal surface and a plantar surface. While this anterior tibial artery, since it is coming from the anterior compartment of the leg, it can obviously reach the dorsum of the foot. And this artery, the continuation of the anterior tibial artery, once it enters into the dorsum, it changes its name as dorsalis pedis artery. Dorsalis pedis artery. This dorsalis pedis artery goes between the first and the space between first and second metacarpals, metatarsals, not carpal, metatarsals. It reaches here and wait there. By the same time, our posterior tibial artery was there. The posterior tibial artery continues down through the posterior surface of the leg. The structure which can pass through the posterior surface of the leg obviously can reach the under surface of the foot. So what happened is the posterior tibial artery comes down, reaches the ankle. From here it divides into two plantar branches, a medial plantar and lateral plantar. Medial plantar comes along the medial side, medial aspect of the plantar aspect, plantar surface. Medial plantar and lateral plantar are the two branches arising from posterior tibial at the level of elbow. These two plantar arteries has to enter the plantar surface and supplies all the structures present in the plantar aspect. But this medial plantar runs along the medial border, that is great toe border, medial border of the foot, while on the other hand the lateral plantar passes through the lateral aspect of the plantar aspect, winds round into the medial aspect and reaches the space between first and second metatarsals. So what happens? Already our dorsalis pedis artery was waiting there at between first and second metatarsals are now joins with the lateral plantar artery, and it forms an arterial arch from which so many digital branches arises that supplies the toes. So that is about the circulation of the lower limb. Now it is clear that we have reached till the toes, from the heart to the neck, head, abdomen, thorax, upper limb, lower limb, pelvis, perineum. Everywhere the blood reaches each and every part of the body. This is how our circulation, the complete circulation of our body takes place. Questions can be asked from this, like circulation of the upper limb. So we have to explain from heart till how does the blood reaches the fingers. So you have to mention every part, like subclavian artery, or later what is the fate of the subclavian artery? It forms the axillary artery. Then what is the fate of the axillary? Axillary artery passes through the axilla and reaches the arm, forms a brachial artery. Then brachial artery reaches the cubital fossa, supplies or divides into radial ulnar artery that goes into the forearm, and it supplies the forearm and finally enters into the palm and supplies the palm by forming an arterial arch by the radial ulnar arteries, and finally gives of so many branches to the digits which supplies the fingers. Now the blood from the heart is reaching till the fingers. So this is how we have to explain. So any part of the circulation can be asked, any part of the body part can be asked, or as a whole, the circulation as a whole can be asked. Thank you.